So it started out as a ride from the Calgary Stampede, the 2012 edition, to Barretos, to the biggest rodeo in Brazil. Became another ride from Barretos all the way to the tip of South America. And the third and the final long ride, we're currently in the middle of it in the Rocky Mountains here, west of Rocky.
This is it right now, folks.
Yeah, we're right in the middle of it in Rocky Mountain House. And I guess
yes, sir.
You guys will be seeing this right around when it'll be concluding on July 3rd in Calgary. But the third ride started in Alaska. It's going all the way to the Calgary Stampede, the 2020 edition. Our guest today, the author of The Long Ride Home, originally from Brazil, spent some time in Canada, but here we are back. Like we said, West Rocky Mountain House, Mr. Filipe Masetti, late. Oh, fuck, I f***ed up.
No, you're good. Liete. You had it, buddy.
Okay.
You were there.
I should have just went for it.
It's
Liete.
the Brazilian, man. It's terrible.
Well, and then you said there's some extra in there. There's like the
my
Souza.
real name is Filipe Masetti de Souza Leite.
Yeah, like 5 names.
I know it's terrible.
All the Brazilian guys have 5 names.
Yeah, you gotta have 5 names or you're not Brazilian.
Oh, geez.
It's terrible. And usually they just call you by a nickname. That's the joke, right?
Yeah.
It's like, my name is Filipe Masetti de Souza Leite. When I was a kid, everyone called me Zetinha. So it's like you have this super long name, and then they just give you a tiny.
Give you one name.
It's terrible. But thank you for coming out.
Hey, yeah, no worries.
Nicest guy in the world brought me a blue cooler full of beer.
Full of beer.
And that is the nicest cowboy I've ever met.
A full assortment. Well, there's always beer at our house.
That's just so nice.
One time that was all we had in the house was just beer.
Well, I'd like to live in that house. Amen. Cheers, sir.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers.
So we actually we got talking like a week ago. I sent you a text, got connected with Christina Barnes with the Calgary Stampede there, and you're the parade marshal. I didn't mention that part, but you're the 2020 parade marshal.
Yes, sir.
You've been waiting on this for like a year, and then you finally get to announce it, and it's canceled.
Yes, sir. That was a hard day. It was a real hard day. You know, I'm terrible at secrets, and when Dana invited me out in the Yukon, he's like, "Wait, but now you can't tell anybody."
Yeah, for like a year.
Like, wait, what? He's like, "Yeah, you can't tell anybody till June of next year." I'm like, why did you tell me now? Like, why are you doing this?
You should have waited. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, so I sat on it for a year and then it got canceled. It was real tough.
Man, so are they going to invite you back next year again maybe, or like what?
No, I don't think so.
You know,
yeah, it's one of the big parts of being president of the Calgary Stampede is selecting the parade marshal. You know, there's been some notorious people that have done it in the past, and
Chris Hadfield, William Shatner, like some royalty different times, like pretty incredible list of folks.
It's pretty incredible.
Big honor to be on that list.
Huge honor. I'm just over the moon. I feel blessed. I feel like I'm not worthy of the job at times, but just so honored to have been chosen. And when it was canceled, it was real sad. But I feel like everything happens for a reason. We started talking about this when you guys showed up. We were talking about the coronavirus and everything that's happening in the world right now. And I'm a big believer that everything's already written. Everything's meant to be. So what are the chances that the one time the Calgary Stampede gets canceled in over a century, there's a guy riding in on horseback to be able to celebrate what it means to be a cowboy and what it means to live this Western way of life. And I'm just so happy to have the torch right now and be able to tell these stories and like I said, celebrate the Calgary Stampede, because even if we're just celebrating the spirit this year, it's important not to forget what this rodeo means to Canada, to Calgary, and to the world as a cowboy. You know, it's one of the biggest rodeos. Every time I told people I was coming from Calgary, whether it was Guatemala, whether it was Peru or Brazil, they knew Calgary because of the Stampede.
It's worldwide brand, really. Like
100%.
That's anywhere I go in the world so far. Somebody knows that I'm involved with the rodeo. It's the Calgary Stampede. It wasn't the NFR or Denver or Houston or any of those rodeos. San Antonio is always Calgary. It's quite incredible to live in that city and have that be a part of our life. I love it. So let's go back a ways here though. So Journey America began basically in your, I don't want to say college dorm, but like it was your house in Eastern Canada, which some folks might not realize, but you spent from the age of 9 to 25 in Ontario.
Yes, sir. Ontario was my home, a little town called Bolton, Ontario. Loved growing up there. It's just a beautiful place, some amazing people. And there's a rodeo association. There's a high school rodeo association, roping association. And I spent my years roping and tie down roping in the rodeos and grew up, went to school for journalism. Like you said,
at Ryerson in Toronto, right?
Yep, exactly. Ryerson in Toronto. And I was in my apartment where I was living at the time. And it had been a dream of mine my entire life, but it was inside me. It was in my soul. It was in my mind. And it was in that apartment my last year of school that I brought it out and wrote it down and was like, you know what, it went from being a dream to being a project. And I didn't even realize how monumental it was of a moment. I wrote on Facebook, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go back to Brazil on a horse. And people were like, what? Like, are you drunk? Like, are you using drugs? Like, it's impossible. Like, you
Yeah.
can't ride a horse to Brazil from Canada. But you know, like I said, at that moment, it was just I wanted to get it out. But it was a monumental moment because from then on, I started planning this trip.
And so in the book that you let's talk about the book first. But in the book that was that your dad gave to you,
Yep.
correct? There was a rider, a long rider that went from Argentina all the way to New York.
Yes, sir.
So had like the Calgary to Brazil trip hadn't really ever happened before, technically
No
no
one's ever ridden
that way
before.
So you're
Everyone
the first
rides
one.
north. Yeah, I'm the first one. But yeah, my dad read me this book. It's called Chifley's Ride. Aim Chifley, 1925, rode from Buenos Aires to New York. And yeah, I don't know why, but it just like, I couldn't forget it my entire life. You know, on my little horse on the farm being like, what have you like to cross Guatemala on a horse?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
What did how long did it take Shifley to go from Buenos
It
Aires to
took
New York?
him 2 years
2
from
years.
go to Buenos Aires to New York.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And you were just over 2 years from Calgary to Barretos.
Yeah, 2 years and 3 months, 803 days.
And I don't even know where to start with this. It's so wild. And to just like come up here today, like you texted me like a week ago, and I was telling Storm on the way up, we're driving and we got our dog in the truck, and the dog's kind of freaking out, and we're trying to keep everything control. And then you said about 100K south of Nordegg, so I'm mapping it out. There's 7 Mile Creek down the way here.
Yeah.
That's I kind of figured you'd be close to there because that's 110.
Yeah.
And then we were looking at the signs we saw on your social. It was like 246. Little did I know that's being posted from Brazil, so it's like could be it's a total crapshoot
at all.
Yeah. so we're just like driving along. We talked to a park ranger, like, hey, have you seen this guy? Yeah, we talked to him. We talked to him. Stopped at another camp, and I was like, there's a bunch of horses, and we get stopped, and we trying to find your horses based on the Instagram. We're like, okay, I don't see the gray, so this can't be it. But we're like, we might as well go drive in and talk to the folks. And I'm like, I bet you I know somebody in here. So sure enough, we know somebody in the truck. And we go talking, yeah.
No.
So and they said that you were at the Ram Falls yesterday, so we knew about the Ram because we used to camp there as a kid. So so we're like, yeah, okay, we'll just keep going north. You got a motorhome that you're traveling in, so we get up. We're like, okay, we found it. We see it, right? So we found him because I hadn't talked in weeks. So it's kind of
yes, sir.
I don't know. Every time now you go to somebody's house, you're like, yeah, I'm here. You text them from outside,
right?
But this is like, no, we're just gonna drive down the road till we see it.
That's amazing, man. You went on a journey. You guys went on a journey to find us.
Not even, but like
no, but that's amazing, man. Like you had no idea where we were. Like I'm on a horse. You were literally following like hoof prints to find this guy for the interview. Have you ever done that for a podcast?
No, this is the first time.
I'm making you work. I'm making you work.
Exactly. From the we're getting a gorgeous day today now too. It was raining a bit ago, but it's amazing. Okay, enough of that though. So the trip though, Calgary to Brazil. I'm reading your book. Just started it. We just got it the other day, but you start out in Calgary. You get 20 kilometers down the road, and it's 40 degrees out.
Yeah.
You must have thought you were in over your head when you get in on that first day.
100%, man. I'm like, what am I doing out here? I'm gonna die. Like, I couldn't even like think about packing a lunch or water that was like not in the pack saddle. And
forgot your breakfast too that day.
Yeah, like it was just so much, you know. Like I had to be the long rider and the reporter and the PR guy and the camera guy and you know, like I was doing it all. I was doing interviews and I was saddling the horses and I was just way over my head. Like I was a one-person team and there should have been like 20 people there, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was tough, man. That first day, I always tell people it was the happiest day of my life because I was taking the first step on a lifelong dream, which I feel like people used to always say to me, like, you're so brave. You know, you're riding through Mexico. You're so brave. Like, you're in Honduras. It's the most dangerous country in the world. Or you're climbing these mountains on a horse by yourself. And I was like, that doesn't exist, you know? Like, to me, bravery didn't exist. But today I realized the bravest thing I did was take the first step because it holds so many people back from living their dreams. And I was 25 years old and I was scared out of my mind. Like I was so afraid, like you just said, way over my head. But John Wayne's got a great line that goes,
courage is being scared to death, but saddling up anyways.
Amen.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. That's all it is. We're all scared.
Yeah.
John Wayne was scared, you know what I mean? Like, but you do it anyways. You put it aside, you know?
And it's like your quote about Oh, what was it now? Oh, I'm drawing a blank. Um, oh, geez, I don't know what the hell it is now, but it was a quote about being about there is no such thing as fear.
Yes,
It's
fear is
all
a monster
yeah, we
that
make it
lives
up in our
within
own
you.
head, right?
Yeah, amen, amen. And I meet so many people today, man, because I do a lot of talks and because of my book, because of what I done. They tell me their dreams and their aspirations, and they never did them because they were scared, you
Yeah,
know. And we all have that. We all have that, but at some point you got to realize it's just a monster. You got to quiet, shut it up, and take the first step. Because when you do, the universe conspires in your favor. I found a place to sleep that first night.
yeah,
I found a place to sleep that second, third, fourth,
kept
100,
going.
200, 400,
Yeah.
600, 800, and I got home.
Wow.
So yeah, but now I realize, thinking back to that kid, nearly 10 years later, I was very brave to take the first step
And go
and say,
do
you
it.
know what, Frenchie's not ready. I'm not ready.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how the hell we're gonna get through this, but I'm going anyways. Like, I'm gonna saddle up and ride out of Calgary for sure.
What was the I want to get into the trip now. What was the most memorable part of that first trip? There's a couple stories you have of being on the road there, but what was some like what's your maybe your fondest and your least fond memory from that first trip?
My fondest memory. There's a lot. This is tough, but like the one that impacted my journey so much was when I was in Colorado. A man by the name of Peter Lisker stayed at his house, helped me out, tremendously. And before I left, he's like, "Felipe, I got to ask you something really weird. I don't know how to ask you this, but," and I was like, "What is this guy gonna ask me?" Right? He's like, "Will you take my sister with you on the trip?"
Really?
And I was like, "Can I see her first?" You know what I mean? And he goes, "My sister passed away, and she was in love with horses. She was an adventure, and I'd like to ask you to take her ashes with me." And I was like, I also believe in, like I said, I feel like things are written. I don't know why I showed up at his house. Like, I could have asked for help 3 houses later or 3 ranches back, and I knocked on his door. So he felt like it was destiny, that was that brought me there to take Naomi, his sister's, her ashes, on one last adventure. And I took him, and so many things happened. The worst for me moment was when my horse Frenchie was hit by a truck. And usually when an animal is hit by a truck, or a car, either they die right away or you got to put them down because they're too heavy, and if they break some. And he didn't. He survived. So I felt like Naomi was kind of a guardian angel for us. Like, it wasn't just my destiny to take her on one last ride, but her come with me to protect us. And when I got to Brazil, I spread her ashes in the pasture where I retired the horses and asked her to keep, continue to watch over them forever.
You talked about a couple Honduras being the most dangerous country in the world.
Yeah.
You ran into some serious shit there, really.
Oh yeah, Honduras is crazy. I went in illegally with the help of a drug lord and stayed at his house for several days. Everyone armed with like AKs and children with pistols.
Holy shit.
He had his petting zoo in his house. His house was like had these like giant walls in front of it, and yeah, it was. I saw 2 people shot dead. I witnessed a guy trying to kill his wife with 5 gunshots. It's a very dangerous place. The war on drugs is a very serious thing we live with today. A lot of people suffering, a lot of people dying because of it. It's very sad. And to those people, they're very poor. This guy grew up in a family where he was hungry most days, and this was his opportunity to grow in life. And around me, he was very kind, very nice. With his children around him. At the same time, it was a huge contradiction because at the same time as this guy is a cold-hearted killer, I couldn't look in his eyes because, like, your eye has a light to it. I'm sure mine does. Most people,
Yeah.
his was like matte black. Like, I couldn't look into his eyes. But at the same time, that he had this, like, he was a very evil man. He was very kind to his family and very loving to his children and to me. So it was very interesting to me as a journalist to like enter his home, and all thanks to the horse. The horse is a common language. The horse unifies people. That's what I found throughout this entire journey, and it puts you in the home of even some of the worst people in the world.
And he was like, how did you get connected with him? Did you ride into his property, or how did that happen?
No, so I met a rancher in Guatemala that was very worried about me. Like every country, there was a family that kind of adopted me. Tons of people helped me, but for some reason, there was always one family that went above and beyond. And this family, they were worried about me going into Honduras, and it was very complicated because of the bureaucracy of Latin America, the corruption. Going legally was almost impossible.
And that's because of trying to get paperwork for the horses.
Exactly.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So it's very, this day and age that everyone's worried about viruses, what we're living right now with this
Yeah.
pandemic
Yeah.
with animals, right? There's some viruses they have in some countries that aren't in others. So they're closing the borders more and more, and it's very hard to cross. So I was crossing illegally, and this family out of Guatemala was very worried. So in countries like this, you have to be friends with these people. Otherwise, you're eating bullets. It's very dangerous. So the owner of this ranch, he knew a guy that was a drug lord in Guatemala. He put me in touch with him. I didn't know at the time where he was taking me. Like, we went to this house with these high walls. They always have really high walls around their house, and a little door that was metal with like one of those openings where you only see the guy's eyes.
Oh wow.
And this guy knocks on this metal door, and the eye opens, and this guy looks through, and he says his name. The door opens. We go in, and I go into this world, and I never imagined. He didn't even tell me, and he put me in touch with this guy, and that guy put me in touch with the Honduras drug lord, and they gave me kind of a safe passing of the border, because had I gone there not knowing anybody, looking so American with my quarter horses and my hat and
Yeah.
my boots, I could have been shot dead. I could have been
Wow.
considered a spy, or they don't ask questions, right? So
Wow.
for my safety, that was the only way to go in, is to have those guys know that I was coming through and have them on my side.
Wow. What was that the most like the scariest part of the trip, or was it other danger perils you ran into along the way?
Now thinking back, yes, I was like, man, I'm nuts. Like, it could have gone bad real quick. Like, if the military arrives, if another narco group arrives, you're in the home, you're a part of these people. You're there. Like, when that guy was trying to kill his wife, like, I was literally staying in the house that they owned. Like, they were right downstairs. Like, I could have been shot. And but there were other, like, for me, the worst parts were with the horses. Always with the horses. Like, when Frenchie got hit by a truck, I had Bruiser fall in a huge hole in New Mexico. Took me nearly 2 hours to get him out. Dude went into a cattle guard. So all the horses had accidents. Luckily, they all survived. I retired them when I got to Brazil. They're my kids. I love them to death. And but those moments when I thought I was close to losing one of my kids, they were always the worst moments for me, because it was like my heart exploded in a million pieces.
Talk about those first. It ended up being a few different horses that you got to Brazil on, but the first three were it was Frenchie and I'm not remembering
Frenchie,
the other two.
Bruiser, and Dude.
And Dude, yeah. And then you got to the ranch in what's it called now? In Bozeman or Helena?
Bozeman, yeah.
What's
Bozeman,
it called
Montana.
again? Judd. It's not Judd Little, but it's like it's a different one, right?
Copper Spring Ranch.
Copper Spring, yeah,
Yes,
Copper
sir.
Spring Ranch, yeah. And then they gave you a horse to ride to
Yes, sir.
Wyoming, and then through the Yellowstone, right?
So I left with Frenchie and Bruiser.
Yeah.
Bruiser is from Copper Spring Ranch in
Yeah.
Montana. And Frenchie's from Stan Weaver, who was the past president of the Quarter Horse Association.
Yeah.
Those two horses were hauled up to Calgary. I rode out of Calgary. When I got to Wyoming, a rancher gave me a third horse by the name of Texas.
Texas, yeah, because
Yes.
you rode there for a week, and that
Yes,
was
sir.
from one of the guys that helped fund the journey of it.
Yes, sir.
Initially, yeah.
The owner of the production company that funds the journey.
Yeah.
He owned the ranch that this guy ran his cattle out of, and a really nice guy named Merrill, like a real cowboy.
Yeah.
And
He worked you for a week, so
yeah.
the horse was kind of partial payment.
Yeah, exactly. Partial payment. So I get Texas, and we rode Texas, Frenchie and Bruiser, all the way to Texas, the state. And I just realized it wasn't a trip for Texas. He was a smaller horse. I could see at the end of the day, Frenchie and Bruiser had their heads up high, looking around, and Texas was in the back, like at the end of the Lee Road, being like,
Not
30
loving it.
kilometers is too much for me.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to stick with him. Like, obviously, I fell in love with the horse. He was a part of the pack, but I was like, you know what? It's not the trip for him. So, a friend of mine that I'd met down there, Karen Hardy, an American woman, great woman that helped me out. She put me in touch with Taos Pueblo indigenous people. She used to train horses for them, and she had this horse named Dude, a Mustang, and she ended up giving me that horse, and she took Texas. So I continued with Frenchie, Bruiser, and Dude.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then at one point you had what was the Copper Springs horse you rode across Yellowstone?
Bruiser. Daredevil.
Daredevil, yeah,
Yes,
because
Daredevil.
somebody got was
Bruiser
stifled.
got her
He was
first.
stifled for a while.
That was
right?
Frenchie. Frenchie got
got
stifled.
Okay, yeah.
Bruiser got hurt also.
Yeah.
And yeah, the folks at Copper Spring Ranch, Brian Anderson, so helpful.
Yeah.
Lent me another horse so I could continue. Brian Anderson rode with me through the
Yeah.
backcountry of
Yeah.
Yellowstone.
And you guys got in some hairy situations on
Oh
that
yeah, man.
leg of the journey too.
Yeah, we lost our food. It was just
Yeah.
terrible. Didn't have water for the horses. Had to trek till almost 1 a.m. to
Yeah.
find water in a dark forest, like plagued with grizzly bears. I am from Brazil. I have no bear experience in Ontario. Closest thing we
Yeah.
have to bear is a raccoon. So like I was literally shitting my pants.
Oh
And
wow.
but we got through it, man. You always get through it. You always push, cowboy
Yeah.
up. Quitting is not an option.
Yeah.
And the mountain may be big, it may be majestic, and you may think it's gonna eat you, but guess what? You're gonna cowboy up and get to the other side.
So you get to you go to what was the worst or most fun part of the States? I guess that like crossing the border with the horse would have been like that was sound like a fun story too.
Yes, it was awesome. I was really worried about that. Like I was like, I'm going into the United States with 2 horses. Like Jesus Christ, like for Brazilians, it's hard enough to get a visa to go into the United States.
Oh yeah.
You're a bull rider. It's like all those Brazilian guys. Like some of them are like champions in Brazil, and they can't get up to ride in the PBR in the U.S. because they won't give them a visa.
Yeah.
It's really tough for us to come up to the U.S. And so I was so scared, but it was Montana. It's God's country, and the folks were so nice. They were taking photos of me, and the even like the officers and the people in line. And yeah, we got through it, and we got in. And like I said, Montana was amazing to ride through.
And then you got so Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, New Mexico, Texas, all the way to Mexico, correct?
Yeah, all the way to Mexico.
What was your best part in the States, though, or worst part?
Man.
Was it the next chapter? I haven't got very far into the book
Yeah.
yet. I'll get finished before we release the show. But your next chapter is Water is Life, and you're in Wyoming, I think. So
yeah,
there's some pretty dry parts and a lot of windmills in that part of Wyoming.
Oh, Wyoming is dry, is bone dry, and we suffered so much with the water. Like people always say, like, what did you do with feed, or what did you do with this? What did you do with that? No. What do you do with water? Because you can't carry water in a pack saddle. It's just way too heavy.
Pretty easy to not find any when you can only make 20, 30K in a day.
30 kilometers a day in really dry countries, and like, this changing weather that we're having. No one knows why, you know what I mean? Like people try to say it's one thing or another. Like we've had cycles in the world where the Americas are frozen and then it was really hot, so we don't know what's happening, but we do know the weather's changing. In a lot of countries, it was the worst drought in the last 100 years, and the U.S. was just that, and it was very tough. And that was the biggest problem we had was just water. That was a really hard part of the U.S. But I think the best part about the U.S. was just the cowboy culture and staying at ranches and helping a brand and roping. I got to rope at Cody, Wyoming.
Yeah, the Cody Night Rodeo.
Rodeo capital of the world. That to me as a cowboy was just a dream come true. And I got to meet some pretty epic cowboys that are still living this way of life to today, whether they're ranchers or long riders or so that was a really cool part. The U.S. too is also so beautiful in terms of geography. The mountains, the forests, like the places I crossed, Yellowstone National Park, Colorado, like New Mexico, the sunsets and sunrises and the mesas out there, Texas, like the desert. It was all so beautiful. It was a really beautiful country to cross, and it took me nearly 6 months, so I got to see it real well.
Oh wow! And then, so next up would have been was Mexico.
Mexico.
Yeah.
That's where it starts to get into the tequila, a lot of drinking, a lot of parties, a lot of horseback rides, a lot of narcotraficantes. It got crazy in Mexico.
Wow. So I'm just walk me through it, I guess. Where
we
did
start in Ojinaga, the anus of Mexico, okay?
So okay, and which town is this? Where did you cross?
It's the border. You're in Presidio, Texas, first world. And you walk like 10 feet and you're in the third world, son. Oh, wow. Real quick.
Holy
People
shit.
like just carrying bags in poverty. There's holes everywhere. You feel danger. Like it's real quick.
Which part of Texas? Like, are you between Laredo
it's West Texas.
So west. So you're like
I'm near Pecos.
Okay.
Marfa.
Yeah, so like Pecos is that was like that movie Judge Roy Bean. Like
exactly.
That
all
was
the good
Pecos,
westerns you watch.
Yeah,
like my dad
like
rode
Alpine down by Alpine, right?
Sir.
That's some pretty country too.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's real cowboy country. Like my dad rode with me through northern Mexico.
Oh, okay.
And every like 3 words he said was like, I feel like I'm in a John Wayne movie. I'm like, Dad, shut up.
Wow.
But that's what it is. Like that's where they fought. They shot a lot of those old westerns, Texas, Mexico, down northern Mexico, Chihuahua area.
Wow. So start off there, and you guys are like you're still knocking on doors, and
Oh, there's no doors. It takes us 7 days to get to the first town.
really.
My dad and I are in the middle of this freaking desert.
So you're just camping out and
We're
like so
camping
where you
out. We're
find water
finding
and
ranches.
where you
Some
find
days
water
you don't
there?
have water. You
You
sleep
don't.
with the horses, no water, tied
Holy
up.
shit.
Some days you find a ranch. You knock on the door. Um, you find people. The first little town we got to was a little village of I don't know how many people, not many people there, and this guy took us in, and just before we went to bed, my dad. That's funny because my dad, when we started riding in Mexico, was like, rule number one: we don't sleep with anybody that's dealing with the drugs. Okay, like you don't go near them, you don't accept help for them, you don't want to do anything to them. I'm like, okay. First day, we start riding. 20 kilometers down the road, we get to this little village called La Mula. There's a couple people living there.
And this is Chihuahua State.
This is Chihuahua State. There's
Yeah.
nothing, right? The first town is 7 days away. This is a tiny little
Holy cow.
gathering of some people that live in the middle of the desert. And this little chubby guy takes us in, and his mom is gone, like she's gone on a trip, and he's there by himself. We're in his home, and right before he goes to sleep, he's like, yeah, I was in jail in the U.S. for 5 years for carrying marijuana across
Trafficking,
the
yeah.
border. My dad's like, I'm like, what happened to the rule, Dad? Oh, it's
Yeah.
nice and warm inside. This is like in the
He's
middle
not-
of winter.
he
He's
changes
not
his
going
mind.
anywhere.
'Cause
Dad's
so-
already thrown rule number one out the window at this
Oh, wow.
point.
So
Yeah.
you're already by this time you leave Calgary in July, so you're 6 months down the road.
Yeah,
We're
this is
talking
January.
January, yeah,
this is
January, Mexico.
It's cold. Like we get
Yeah.
snow in Texas. Snow finally.
Yeah.
I was running away from the snow. The horse's water started freezing in Colorado.
Yeah.
And I was hauling ass through the United States because if it snowed and
You're
I caught the
screwed.
winter, I would have had to wait
Yeah.
till the following spring.
Oh wow.
So finally, when we got to Texas, it snowed on us, and then I just rode the final 3 days, and then we got to Chihuahua, and it was cold. So my dad wasn't gonna give away a warm bed
oh no.
and some heat to sleep in the middle of the desert at that point. So he threw rule number one right out the window. But yeah,
So Chihuahua, and then do you go through Chihuahua City as
No.
well?
no,
Didn't go that
we
way?
We were east of Chihuahua City,
Okay.
and we got the first town we got to was called Camargo, a small town, and we were very happy to see people, and we were hosted very well by a rancher as well, and
And this is like just somebody you met again. You
oh
didn't
yeah,
know
we just meet people
beforehand.
on the road. No one
Yeah.
knows who I am. You know, I knock on a door, or they see me riding down the road and they stop me and ask where I'm going, and everyone's been so helpful. That's the best part of the trip.
So then from there you're gonna get kind of a little tropical there, a little further south, eh?
Yes,
like
sir.
then it
Gets
kind of
real
gets like
hot.
it gets kind of nice again after getting like flirting with winter. Then it gets nice again.
Yeah, but then it gets like real hot. So we cross the desert. You know, the desert continues south through most of northern Mexico, Zacatecas, Durango, and then once we start getting to Mexico City, then from Mexico City south, it gets tropical. But then what happens is you get to like 45 degrees,
Too hot.
humidity. The horses are like trying to
Dragging
breathe,
their asses, yeah.
dragging at like it's so humid they can't
And
even
water
breathe.
Water would probably almost be a trouble again, wouldn't it? Because you got to get the right
water's
water.
a trouble again because you have to drink so much of it because the
Yeah.
horses are sweating so much all day. Like 6 o'clock in the morning, brushing your teeth, and your shirt is glued to your back.
And what time of the year is this now? Is this like March, April?
So January I got to Chihuahua. I crossed into Mexico. February, March, April, May, July probably.
July.
Which
Oh,
is not is pretty hot down there as well.
kind of the heat of the year at
Yeah.
that point. I think the cow's saying we should take a beer break.
We hired that cow for the commercial break.
So we're in Mexico. Get through Mexico, then you go. Then you're in Guatemala, Honduras, Costa Rica,
Nicaragua, Costa
Nicaragua.
Rica.
Yeah, all
And that
through
was
there.
real hot, really hard, like
yeah,
humid.
really dry. Yeah,
Yeah, it's just tough, really tough. The borders were super hard. Got to Panama, had so many bureaucratic problems. You're
Yeah.
gonna read about it. Then to get into South America was like the worst fight of my life. You know, like
how long did it take?
it took 2 months.
2 months. You had to wait.
Yeah.
So you can get to the border.
Wait, stop.
What'd
2
you do
months.
for 2 months?
Got paperwork and money because it cost me
wow.
tons of money. And some countries we couldn't go in, other countries wouldn't accept us. It was a huge mess. We basically
You
got,
can't go around really.
no, and then we got into Peru, and then from Peru rode to Bolivia, and then from Bolivia rode into Brazil. We're stopped at the Brazilian border for a month doing tests on the horses,
Oh my
quarantine.
gosh.
Like it was really hard. And but anyways, got into Brazil, rode for 3 months through Brazil, very hard as well. And but finally got into Barretos, the largest rodeo in Latin America.
Yeah.
30,000, 40,000 people in the stands. It was just, yeah, like I always say, it feels like my spirit was out of my body for a little bit there. I reached another level of yeah, it was just insane, and it was just a dream come true. You know, it was very hard to take the first step. It was a lifelong dreaming of it. It was very hard and arduous to complete the journey, as you can imagine. So getting there with the horses, you know, my family on stage, my grandma, people that have been important to the trip, people that helped me from the U.S., people from Canada, and then these guys like unveiled this monument they built of myself
Really?
and the horses,
Oh, cool.
for them, like more than 5 meters tall. And yeah, man, it was spectacular. Like it was
A
a moment.
hero's welcome home.
Yes, yes, sir. It was insane. Like not even deserved. Like for me, it's just like I don't like. It's just insane. Like I'm very blessed
Oh,
and
wow.
thankful. Yeah.
So that was into the first trip, and then you go. That was, and it was 2 years. Like you're 800 days on the road. Then what do you do? Then you sit home,
Oh, then
sit
it's
and
real
write the
tough.
book.
Then it's
Like it's a
real
lot more
tough.
work.
Yeah, I wrote the book, but it was a very hard moment in my life. Like I had symptoms of PTSD. Like I had anxiety, early signs of depression. Like I saw a lot of crazy things out there. You know, we laugh today, we talk about it, like, oh, this guy was trying to kill his wife, but I
Yeah.
was there. Like I don't know if he was gonna come kill me next,
Oh
or
yeah.
if he had killed her.
And you
Like
couldn't do anything. Like
yeah, those are
you
things
got
like
nothing to protect yourself with
yeah,
either.
and those are things that stayed with me in my soul for the rest of my life. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And then you finish this crazy like trip, this dream. You spent like 2 years
Two
traveling on a
years.
horse,
Yeah.
and then it ends, and you're back to normal life, and you don't want to talk about what you did. My friends would be like, every time we went to a bar, like, "Oh, this is Felipe. You know, he's the guy that rode horse," and I didn't want to be that guy.
And that's
Like,
in Brazil.
and this is in Brazil, or when I came back to
Came back to
Canada to see
Canada.
my friends and
And came
stuff,
back to Toronto or
to Eastern
Bolton,
Canada,
I
yeah.
guess, right? Bolton.
And so it was a very hard moment for me, and I kind of lost purpose. Like I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like it was a
Yeah.
very tempestuous moment in my life. Like a lot of things fell apart, and until I went to this children's cancer hospital in Barretos and saw the work they were doing. It's a hospital that treats the kids for free in my country that has so many problems when it comes to health. Like people are dying in hospital lines because of a lack of doctors, medicine, equipment. And I saw this like state of the art hospital started by a rancher,
Really?
and yeah, and that treats kids for free. And I was like, how do I help? Like when I got
Yeah.
out of there, I was like, what do I do? Like, you know, like what do I do? What do I do? And going on Google Maps and saw that there was 7,500 kilometers to get to the end of the world, the southern tip of South America. And I said, you know what? That's where I'm going to go. I'm going to get back in the saddle and ride there to Ushuaia, Argentina, raise funds for the hospital, you know, talk to people about the importance of an early diagnosis for childhood cancer. Another big problem in Latin America. Kids are getting to the hospital way too late, and there's nothing that the doctors can do at that point. So went on that trip. It took me a year and 3 months, 3 countries. I used a set of horses for each country, and managed to raise 60,000 for the hospital. And arrived in Ushuaia in a blizzard, -16,
Oh wow.
snow up to the horses' knees, and very arduous trip. Met Clara, my girlfriend, on that trip. Saved my life, taught me how to love again, and I was in very bad shape. And I'm very thankful to have met her and adopted a dog. On the way, Butch Cassidy, a street dog.
Yeah.
Made a friend for life, Totti, a guy that helped me out so much the last 6 months of the trip. And then when I was getting to Ushuaia, I said, now I need to finish the Americas. All that's left
Yeah,
is
the whole
Alaska
way.
to
Yeah.
Calgary.
Yeah.
So that's where we are now, you know, on this last leg.
And you're finishing July 3rd. We're like we said, we're West Rocky, so you got a couple 100K to go, about 230 kilometers back
Yes,
to
sir.
Calgary. Then you're the parade march. We'll ride right into the Calgary Stampede. It'll be a little bit different without.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be completely different without the
Yeah.
Stampede, but
There'll be no one there,
there'll be no
but
one there. But
yeah,
it'll be
I'll
a
be there.
big deal though to ride into Calgary here in a couple weeks.
Oh, it's a huge deal. Like we said at the top of this podcast, you know, I feel blessed. It's a huge honor for me, you know, to be on a list with like Pierre Trudeau, William Shatner, Walt Disney. Like these are extraordinary people, you know.
Oh yeah,
And now I'm
Chris
on that list.
Hadfield, astronaut.
Yeah,
he's been
like
to space.
astronaut. You know, yeah, the guy went to space. Like,
Do you think space is more is about what, like you kind of have almost been to space in a different way? Have you been to
well,
Earth
here
in-
this is a
in a different
crazy
way?
fact.
Yeah.
12 people have walked on the moon.
Yeah.
3 guys have crossed the Americas on a horse.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's what I was looking for though. There's that.
Yeah.
There's less people that have done what you've done.
Yes, sir.
Wow. So you get to Calgary. We're talking like 2 weeks from now,
Yeah.
and this is
13 days exactly.
yeah, 13 days from
I
now.
check every day.
And we get and because you're done after this. This is your last long ride. Like you've
Yep.
had enough. What?
I've had enough. Last long ride. I've said it. That's the name of my
Yeah.
last book. Yes, sir.
And what's next now? That we talked about this when I showed up. I asked you. Like
Yes,
I'm
sir.
curious.
Yeah, everyone wants
What's
to know. I
next?
know what's
Yeah.
next. It's funny when I got to Brazil. Like there's a Brazilian um, television show. It's very famous in Brazil. And the guy came out to my hometown when I arrived there.
Yeah.
I'd like carry a saint for like 5 kilometers in. It was insane.
Yeah.
And went to church. And as soon as I'm going in the church with the saint, the guy's like, "Filipe, what's next?" I'm like,
I don't know yet.
let me sleep first. Like,
Yeah.
what's crazy?
Yeah.
But everyone wants to know, right? What's next? And for sure, this is my last time riding a horse long distance. I've said this before. Like, it's the physical pain is doable. You know what I mean? I feel young still. I'm 30 years old, 33 years old. But the mental and the spiritual pain are very great. This has been hard. It's been very arduous. Every day is an adventure. Like the amount of adrenaline that I'm living out here is like riding a bull. But for 8 years, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. It's a long time.
Yeah, like it's a long time.
It's a lot of big part of your life. It's a big,
yes,
like
sir.
one of the bigger parts of your life so far.
It's a decade. It's a decade that I've been doing this project. From the point I started planning to when I finish, when I ride into Calgary, it will have been 10 years that I've been working on this. So I'm excited for some change. I want to work on this movie. They're turning my first book, Long Ride Home, into a movie. So I'm excited to work on that. We've been working on the script and the locations, and now we get to start shooting this thing next year. Hopefully, excited to launch my new book, Long Ride to the End of the World, this year. At the Calgary Stampede, and work on the next few projects that will be, I feel like, related to journalism, documentary making, and this Western way of life, which is a part of my life. It's in my blood, and we can't get away from it. And tell stories that I feel are important to me and to this world that I love so much, that I'd hope is not going to end. And everything right now is pointing towards the end of it. And that breaks my heart because I grew up in it, and it taught me the biggest lessons of my life. I always say the horse has made me a better human being. And were I not a cowboy, I don't know what I would have been or who I would have been. So I'd like to hope that it continues for a long time, and I'd like to do that through these projects that I'm working on.
When I got hooked up with you to do this show, I watched the video where they announced that you were the parade marshal, and it kind of like it really kind of it hit me because it was such a real situation, I guess, or like a real story, and you have a real story, and it really resonated with what we do and what we want to, the stories we want to tell. As kind of like, I guess I'm kind of a journalist too,
Yes,
a little
sir.
bit, right?
Of
Like
course, 100%.
not professional. I never went to school for it or anything,
Nah,
but whatever.
journalism's not school, man.
Yeah.
It's this.
We want to tell the stories.
Yes,
so,
sir.
and the real people and in the real places. So,
Yes, sir.
So one question we asked everyone is what their definition of cowboy shit is. So for you, I think this could fill up a whole show almost on its own. But take as much time as you want. Let's hear it.
No, to me, cowboy shit is like opening the door for whoever's coming out behind you. It's being kind. It's being a steward of the land. It's waking up early and working hard. It's respecting your elders. It's treating animals with the most respect that you can and living for them, living for the land. It's everything I learned growing up from men and women that wear cowboy hats and boots and spurs, and that's what it is to me. It's a way of life, and I try to live it every day because I love it, and I feel like it's a great way to live your life. And yeah, I'm just blessed to have grown up in a family of cowboys. That's all I can say.
Would you suggest this kind of travel to anyone else, or is this only for a few folks? Like this, it can't be. I don't know. Not a lot of people can do it, can afford to do it, have the horses. What would you say that way?
Well, people like, it's funny when I was when I was riding to Brazil, I shot 6 episodes for a big a show in Brazil, like the CBC The National, basically. Everyone watched it every Sunday night. And whenever it came out, there'd be thousands of comments on the stories, and 99% of them was just that, like, oh, if I was a millionaire, that's what I would do too.
Yeah.
If I was rich, I'd just travel the world on a horse. But yeah, like I was a kid with a dream, man. Like I didn't have a horseshoe to do this. I had 2 jobs that I used to work, and one of them was busing,
Yeah.
And I was still in my last year of university. I was broke, but I learned very quickly that if you have a dream and you want to do something and you're willing to work for it and you're willing to do the strategic planning of it, then nothing's holding you back. For me, when I hear people saying that to me today, I say, excuse. You don't have the money? Excuse.
Yeah.
Excuse. Like what? You can't? Excuse. You don't have the know-how? Excuse. I didn't have anything. And today, like when I left Calgary, I left from a parking lot 8 years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
Today I'm riding back the parade marshal. Like I shouldn't have been here.
Yeah.
I'm a Brazilian kid that only went to university thanks to a scholarship. Like it wasn't in the cards for me. You know what I mean? I didn't have the horses, I didn't have the saddles. Today I have a line of saddles.
Yeah.
Today I have a line of boots, line
Line
of
of
hats.
hats.
Like
Yeah.
I
Everything.
have 2 monuments raised in my, my name.
Yeah.
And it didn't come easy, but it wasn't handed to me. It was a lot of hard work. It was a lot of sweat. But anyone that wants to do anything, whatever it is, like when I told people about this, they said it was impossible.
Yeah.
So I can relate to people that say, oh, people tell me I can't do it. It's like bullshit. Do you want it?
Watch me. Yeah.
Like, do you want it or do you kind of want it? That's the thing. I feel like a lot of people kind of want it. But if you want it bad enough and you're willing to work for it, nothing is impossible.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. That's what my dad told me whenever I was a kid. I can do anything I want to if I want to bad enough.
Yes, sir.
Right?
That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's just how hungry are you?
Yeah.
That's why all these Brazilian guys come up to PBR
Yeah,
and win.
they're hungry. Yeah.
Because they're real hungry, literally and figuratively.
Oh yeah.
And that makes the difference,
We can wrap it up there, but I want to ask. You said you were looking for that purpose and everything afterwards. So you got a little bit longer here with the movie, with getting that done, with another book coming too. But what else do you want to accomplish in your lifetime? What's the next? What does that look like? I guess in the next 30 years.
I just want to keep traveling. Like I love traveling. I love telling stories of faraway places, faraway cultures. Like I said, I studied journalism to try to inspire a more just world. I was born in Brazil, and I know what it's like for people not, to work in the morning to eat lunch and to work in the afternoon to eat dinner, and kids that don't have an opportunity to go to school. And it breaks my heart, and I don't like it. So I'd like to work on projects that kind of try to help with that, and like I said, to spread this Western culture and the reality of it. The cool thing about me is that my book is a bestseller in Portuguese and English, so it's not just country folk that are reading my book. It's people in New York or Philadelphia or Sao Paulo or Rio or Paris, and I love that. I love to be able to take our Western culture into the homes of doctors and lawyers and these people that live in the big cities and the major cities, and a lot of time judge us from afar because they don't know our world. And I feel like when they read about it and they find out how much love we have for these animals and this way of life, they'll respect it and allow us to continue to celebrate it and live it the way we have for hundreds of years. So that's going to be, for the next projects, always, I feel like documentary or, writing and things like that. But I feel like related to the horse and this Western culture.
Outstanding. Well, thanks for doing this. Filipe Masetti, Liete.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. This was totally awesome. I'm glad we got to come out here today and do this. And I guess we better make ourselves some supper here soon. And
yes, sir. We're gonna
figure
eat
it
now.
out.
Thank you so much for bringing this cooler full of beer.
No worries.
And it's a pleasure hanging out with you guys for a little bit. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, great. Well, we'll see you July 3rd at the Calgary Stampede. Your 2020 Parade Marshal, Filipe Masetti Liete.
Yahoo!
West Virginia and Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River. Life is old there, older than the trees, younger than the mountains, growing like a breeze. Country roads take me